One little email threw Taylor Stockdale's world into chaos. It was a simple email. It was only one sentence long. It was curt, like all of Cliff Bronson's emails. It said, "I need to speak to you. I'll be at the office at noon." Noon? That was a disaster. That meant the man Taylor had been long-distance fantasizing about for a year would be at the office in less than an hour. Her hair was frizzy from the July heat, she'd spilled coffee on her skirt, and she had ink stains on her fingers from an exploding pen. And why did he need to speak to her in person? She was a receptionist, a nobody. Completely inconsequential. The sales reps at Bronson's Sports Performance were quick to point that out to her all the time. An image of Cliff swam before Taylor's eyes. She was intimately familiar with his looks. It was all she could do not to zone out staring at that stupidly handsome face of his, and watching the movement of his lips as they shaped his words. For some reason, he always insisted on speaking to her via Skype, unlike everyone else at the office, who he spoke to on the office phone. In fact, it was a little odd that he called and spoke to her as often as he did. He could just as easily have checked in with Perry Martin, their office manager. He'd ask her to pull up the sales reps' reports. He'd ask her who was in the office that day, but declined to speak to them. It was all information he could easily have pulled up on his own computer. Sometimes he'd call up and ask her to transfer him over to the factory, where their expensive sports supplements were packaged. Why didn't he just call there directly? He had a ruggedly handsome face and thick, dark hair. His eyes were strange and beautiful. They were the color of amber whiskey, just like his brothers, Grant and Austin. The Bronson brothers had eyes that were a shade she'd never seen before. If it had just been Cliff, she would have thought he was wearing some kind of exotically colored contact lenses. But all three brothers had the exact same eye color, and so had their late mother, Jessica. She knew that from the publicity photos she'd found on the internet. Not that she was cyber-stalking Cliff or anything.